Now, just over a week ago, Noah Lyles was on Cam Newton's Funky Friday podcast, where he, of course, made various different comments, touched upon so many different topics, but specifically about the sport being professional and about, a league in track and field, about him, wanting a shoe and different things like that. These are actually things he's spoken about at various different points over the past year. But this, of course, took the track and field world by storm, and everyone, dove in and had comments, and there's been a lot of good coverage as well. In the track and field world, you had, shout out to my man Coach Rob, did a couple videos on it. Justin and Rodney, they just recently addressed it on Ready Set Go. Colin and Noah Williams, they addressed it on Track World News, right? In the track and field world, a couple people did, of course, address it. Outside of the track world, you had Cameron come out on It Is What It Is on his podcast, and he went in on Noah. You had Gilbert Arenas on his Gil's Arena podcast. He addressed Noah Lyles as well, and they had a very spirited debate. I think that it's been really interesting to see the different comments. I personally wasn't actually going to make a video, which is why it's a little bit late. Shout out to Coach Rob. I wasn't planning to make a video on this, but I just kept thinking about how Noah got to this point where the track and field world seems to be against Noah, where even though I feel like the track world has been trying to defend Noah, but I feel like it's getting to a point where he's almost like working against the track world while talking about supporting the track world and kind of conflicting. And I think that goes to the crux of what I've been thinking about over this past week, where Noah is saying things that are right in terms of the track and field isn't professional. There needs to be a structured league, right? We need to, have an opportunity for athletes to be able to make more money in ways that other, professional sports do. He's right in all those aspects. But then when he's like mixing his ideas up with certain other things and his delivery, that is like pushing him away from the track and field world, the people who actually started and laid the foundation for him to become the one that we know today, for him to become the, Noah Lyles, who's starting to reach outside of the track world. And I'm not saying that we, quote unquote, in the track world are, responsible for that. He's done extremely hard work. And I think I should have started out with that, where Noah Lyles has done tons and tons of work to become the athlete who he is. The hard, days when he was young, dealing with asthma, dealing with all the mental health issues, right? Going through the losses and all those things, like all the he had to, of course, put in work on his own. But the track world definitely helped him to become this Noah Lyles that is a very, very popular athlete, and is starting to transcend the sport in different ways. So to kind of highlight that, because again, I want to talk about how Noah Lyles, and I might title this, Noah Lyles is both right in terms of like his assessment of the state of track and field and it not being professional, but he's also wrong in terms of like his delivery and his choices that he's making to help the sport of track and field. Now, to circle back, I want to dive into how we, as the internal track and field world, did help Noah in a sense, where Noah Lyles was extremely talented and he put in so much work to become this athlete who was the World U20 champion in the 100 meters, to become the athlete who got 4th place at the Olympic trials in 2016, who signed a deal with Adidas coming straight out of high school, became a Diamond League champion in 2017, just barely a year out of high school, who became the 2019 world champion in the 200, the 2023 world champion in the 200, literally 3 back-to-back 200-meter titles, something that only Usain Bolt has been able to do when talking about the 200 at the World Championships, to become a Diamond League champion in the 100 and 200 in 2019 as well. These are the accolades that Noah Lyles built up and worked for. Let me be very clear. Noah Lyles worked for these accolades on his own, with his coach, with his team, but the track and field world, we appreciated seeing someone like a Noah Lyles actually lived up to those expectations that many people might have said, oh, we've seen this before, like, you're not gonna, he lived up to those. But we actually did celebrate it. When he broke that American record in Eugene, right, we celebrated it while he was celebrating. When he won his three gold medals, his sprint triple at the World Championships in Budapest, the track and field world celebrated it. This was Noah getting that stardom in the track and field world specifically. We saw Noah Lyles as one of the greatest sprinters, in track and field history. Let me be clear. I know y'all about to come for me in the comments. I'm not saying Noah Lyles is the best sprinter. I'm not saying he's top 2. I'm not saying all that, right? What I'm saying is that after winning 3 consecutive golds, after getting a sprint triple, after breaking an American record in the 200, we can say that Noah Lyles was one of the best, track and field sprinters in history. But 2023 is where things did start to change. Now, at Budapest, we all remember after he won the 100 gold, then he won the 200 gold, and in that press conference for the 200, not the 100, but in the 200, he had the press conference where he said the world champions of what? Referring to basketball players and all that. So that is, I think, the first step as to where Noah Lyles started to really blow up and kind of like transcend and at least get his name really, really out there, where all these people were saying, all right, yo, first of all, who is this guy? And then second of all, is he right? Is he wrong? That conversation really started. And I think that broke through for Noah. Olympic Games in the 100 meters, supercharge that to a whole different degree. When you win an Olympic gold medal in the 100 meters specifically, you're out of here in terms of, your popularity, your notoriety, your all that, because you are, quote unquote, the world's fastest man. And Noah Lyles, he rightly really took that title, world's fastest man, to like 100, where he was promoting it. He was doing so much with it. He was saying like, yes, I am that. This is where Noah Lyles and the track world, maybe even a little bit before that, right, during the summer of 2024, this is where things start to really come to a head, where, a lot of people started to be like, Noah, all right, you're doing a lot, right? You're doing a little too much. We still like you. We still saw all the success that you had, coming up from 2014 all the way up to 2023. But the Olympic gold, that took it to a whole nother level, and he becomes the guy that we know today. Why do I bring all this up? My personal opinion, I think Noah Lyles kind of breaking through into the general public, right, outside of the track and field world, I think that gave Noah a little more like flexibility and comfortability to talk more about ideas that he already had. There's probably opportunities that he's had and times that he has spoken about the sport being professional, et cetera, but he hadn't gotten to that point where it was like, all right, now people are going to listen to me. Yes, he's a two-time world champion. He's an American record holder in the 200. But the track and field world, we're always listening, right? We gonna break down the nuances of Noah Lyles doing everything, right? But when you start to break through, that's when people start to listen of like, what's going on in track? Like, the reality, track and field is just not as popular as we would like it to be. So now that he's actually broken through, he can actually start to speak more. He's getting more opportunities for engagements. He's getting more opportunities to have these conversations. Even before this, it's interesting because this Cam Newton show, this one blew up, but a couple months ago, Noah Lyles was on the Torre podcast, and he said the exact same things about the sport not being professional. Not in the exact way, and Grand Slam track hadn't come to fruition yet, but he was saying the same things about the sport not being professional, but, it was kind of low key. So all this come around to the Cam Newton podcast. Let me just address why I think Noah Lyles is right, a little more in depth, and then also why I think he's wrong. He's right because we're obviously not a quote unquote professional league, right? We're not a professional sport in the specific sense of the word. We're not like the NBA. We're not like the NFL. We're not professional in those aspects. There's quote unquote professional aspects that you can say to a degree, where prior to the 1970s and 80s, athletes weren't supposed to be getting paid, right? From my understanding, if you got paid to compete at certain meets, even if it was happening under the table, but like to compete at certain meets, like you wouldn't be able to go to the Olympics because you were supposed to be still amateur. Back in like the 80s, right? Like that's when the sport truly became like quote unquote professional, and money really started to be doled out to tons and tons of athletes. And we started to see these massive stars like Carl Lewis, like a Jackie Joyner Kersey, right? Those athletes became stars when the sport moved away from amateurism. So we're not a professional sport right now. What would make that work is an actual professional league, right? Where athletes are signed to a league and they're competing at various different meets, for whatever capacity, which comes to the Grand Slam track aspect. Cam Newton obviously didn't know Grand Slam track. He also didn't know sprint either. Noah, come on, but Noah is explaining how Grand Slam track is actually a stepping stone towards something like that occurring in track and field. And Grand Slam track is by no means like perfect in any capacity. It's not a league like we would see in the NBA or the NFL or something like that, but it's a stepping stone. And Noah Lyles acknowledged that as much. But this is where he starts to really just go down the wrong path in terms of his communication about, the progress for track and field, where he's saying that to help track and field, we need some sort of league. But then he comes back and says, I'm not going to join that league because, I'm supposed to get paid more, which is fine, right? If he has a certain amount that he deserves, right? That's perfectly fine. And then they, obviously they didn't come to a final negotiation or settlement, and he's not competing in Grand Slam track. But the problem with Noah is he's looking very individually about himself while talking at the same time about growing the sport. And this is just a pure disconnect where you can say that the sport needs to grow in certain ways, and there's something here that's helping to grow the sport, but then say, no, I wouldn't want to be part of that because it doesn't work for me individually. So yes, Noah Lyles can be right in deserving a little more money, deserving a bigger platform or whatever it may be. But then he also has to acknowledge on the flip side that you're saying we need this in track and field. We're saying that this, thing should exist in track and field to help grow the sport, but then not join it, right? Like, then how is the sport actually going to grow if you as an individual are not going to actually join it? And connected to that is why I gave some history, because remember where Noah Lyles came from, right? It's almost like he's abandoning the people who got him to being who he was, right? Who got him to become this famous athlete in track and field circles prior to him becoming a world champion in the 100, prior to him becoming an Olympic champion in the 100, right? That sport, that community that he worked, that supported him all throughout, all through the years, those are the people that now he's kind of like pushing away, saying like, I'm already, big enough. I've broken through to the main, quote unquote, broken through to the mainstream, right? But, I feel like y'all need help, but I'm going to still like, stay on my own while I'm asking for more money, while I'm doing this, that, whatever, while I'm doing my interview. Like, that's why it just feels so like, I feel like the track and field community is pushing a little bit back from Noah Lyles, and it's kind of like disappointing, right? Like, I've had the opportunity to speak with Noah Lyles a trillion times over the past couple years, and he is a great person, but then when you do see these conversations, when you do see these comments, it just takes away from like, come on, Noah, like we've been there for you, and you're saying the right thing that track and field needs this. But then you're choosing to just leave the track and field world like, oh no, you do it by yourself, as opposed to you actually helping, right? That's where it just seems so contradictory and kind of like, damn, Noah, like really? Just the way that Noah Lyles is speaking and communicating, of course, in this interview, but in other interviews as well, where he's speaking as if the track and field world, yes, he wants to help them, but he's already bigger than them. And the problem with that is your message that I agree with gets lost in translation. There's a song there's a rapper named Skyzoo. I have his album up here called The Salvation, which he dropped in 2009. He had the last song on the album is called Maintain. And on that song, he says, trying to explain it to anyone will get him lost, and points don't exist if they don't ever get across. Again, trying to explain it to anyone will get him lost, and points don't exist if they don't ever get across. This, I think, 100% perfectly applies to a Noah Lyles. He has a really great point about the sport not being professional. He has a really great point about the things that might be necessary for track and field to grow, for track and field to break out of, becoming a very quote unquote niche or Olympic sport, and to appeal more to the mainstream public in those off years, in, the years that the Olympics are not going on. But when the way that you're communicating it, that completely takes away from your overall message. So regardless of what your message is, that's already lost, right? Your point doesn't exist if it doesn't get across. So you can say all these things, but if you're not communicating it appropriately and in a way that's actually effective, then it's literally basically meaningless, right? That's my problem with Noah Lyles at this point. And I do want to, again, circle back to how Noah Lyles has put in a ton of work to get to where he's at, to not only become the athlete that he is, but also to become the person that he is, right? The, person who has all this fame and attention and notoriety. But it's almost like he's saying the right things, but they're just getting lost in translation. And it's coming off like he's pushing the track and field world away from him, despite us being, the ground for him, right? Where we're going to support Noah Lyles in the sense of, oh, he's one of the greater track athletes. We can never take that away from him, but it's like, yo, we're trying to do things here, whether it is Grand Slam track, whether it is athlos, whether it is, something else, right? Whatever it may be that actually does come into the sport of track and field, these are initiatives that are being started to hopefully help grow the sport. And if you're saying that it should be there, but then also saying that like, nah, I'm not going to be a part of it because I want more money and I'm bigger than, it's like, it seems like mixed messages. So that was a lot of rambling, I'm gonna be completely honest, but just my initial thoughts. I wanted to at least share just some of the thoughts that I had, because I'd been thinking about these over the past week, and I wanted to at least get something out. I do want to know, I know the shoe conversation has come up. I guess I'm not too interested in it in a sense. I don't know, should Noah Lyles have a shoe? If he wants a shoe, sure. We just saw Mujinga Kumbunji, she got a shoe from Nike. You had Faith Kipyegon got a shoe, right? I don't know. Y'all can argue it. I don't know. If Noah Lyles wants a shoe, he can get a shoe. If not, I don't know. But yeah, overall, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Again, this has probably been beaten to death a lot, but the biggest thing is just like, Noah Lyles, you're saying some good things. You're actually saying some things that are 100% true, but the way that you're communicating, it's just like it's getting lost in translation, and you're coming off as like, I'm bigger than the sport, which you may very well be bigger than most athletes in the sport, but like track and field is still your sport, right? Like track and field is your sport. Again, you can do whatever you want, but it's just weird. I'm seeing a lot of contradictions. But let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.